Charlie Baker is scheduled to introduce his 2016 state budget later this week. During a recent stop in Springfield, Governor Baker came in to talk with us about a number of issues, including his spending plan for the next fiscal year.
I hope you characterize it the same way you characterize the way we dealt with the fiscal 15 deficit, the year we're in right now. Shortly after we took office, we inherited a deficit of about $750 million. We put together a plan that was a combination of revenue fixes and spending cuts. We processed it pretty aggressively with the legislature and took about 2 weeks for it to get through the legislature and back to us. They moved pretty expeditiously on it as well. We signed it, and that was kind of it for 15. And I hope that the 16 budget process will have some of the same characteristics. It's going to be, we're starting with a big deficit because obviously this year's budget was out of balance. Mass Taxpayers Foundation said it's north of $1.5 billion. That's a reasonable estimate. I think the solution there is going to be some reforms, probably some rethinking of some programs, and overall, we'll live up to the commitments we made to the voters. We're not going to cut local aid, won't be any unfunded mandates, and we're not going to raise taxes.
Got to ask you, being in Western Massachusetts, where public higher education is big, big business. Senator Rosenberg, Senate President, likes to call UMass flagship the engine of our economy, and we got a lot of other state institutions as well. Any sense of what's going to happen to public higher ed in your document?
Well, I think we're going to try pretty hard to make sure that despite the size of the shortfall and the problems that we're dealing with, that most people feel we're giving them the resources they need to get the work that they need to get done. And I think my hope is that most folks, when they see the budget, recognizing the size of the problem we were facing, will understand sort of why we did it and how we got there. I will say this, when we did the mid-year correction this year, we reached out to and talked to virtually every affected constituency so they would understand why we did it and what we were trying to accomplish. We'll do the same thing with the 16 budget as well.
You touched on the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, talking about your 2016 budget. Their new president, I think McEnany, said, I think this budget that we see from Governor Baker is going to represent a new reality. What do you say to that?
Well, the only new reality I think it represents is we're not going to spend more than we take in. I mean, the big problem we face this year and next year, if you just sort of let the thing continue to run, is the state spending's going up by about 8% a year at the same time the tax revenue and revenue overall is going up about 5%. You just can't do that over the long haul. I think the other thing I would say, Jim, Mass Health and the broken connector, huge problem for the people of Massachusetts, the taxpayers, the folks who depend on that program. That all by itself represented 13% of the growth in state spending in this fiscal year. It's just growing like significantly beyond the rate of inflation, the rate of healthcare inflation, the rate of the budget, growth in the budget, and we're going to have to do some things to rein that in, because if we don't, there are going to be consequences for every other part of state government, including things like public higher education, K through 12 education, programs in energy, environment, I mean, just across the board. So I do think you'll see us take a pretty significant focus on trying to reform the Mass Health program and fix the connector.
Well, let's talk about that briefly. The connector, you took some pretty straightforward, bold action. You went to the 4 gubernatorial appointees who still had some time there, and you said, I would like your resignations. I want to have my own people. They all complied. They serve at the pleasure of the governor, if you will.
But they didn't have to resign. I mean, we appreciated the fact that they stepped down.
You've now got two of your top people, Secretary of Administration and Finance and Health and Human Services, in position there. You clearly have an idea of what you want to do and what needs to be done.
Yeah, the most important thing I think we've done here, first of all, we had the Secretary of Administration and Finance, Kristen Lepori, switch chairs with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mary Lou Sutters. So Mary Lou is going to chair the board. Health and Human Services, healthcare, that person should chair the board. Second thing we did was we installed an executive director who is a technology person. The connector does a lot of things, but most of what it does is about customer service and technology. And we've had a lot of people run that place who are basically policy people. Nothing wrong with policy people, but this is a technology job. So the person we're going to have running the connector is a technology fellow who I've known for a long time. He also was my chief information officer when I was at Harvard Pilgrim. He was my chief information officer when I worked in state government. He knows he's done a lot of consulting work for exchanges around the rest of the country, and for the first time I think we're going to have somebody leading that operation who really gets the whole notion of how technology fits into this and how it's supposed to support the efforts of the organization overall. I think that will be a big improvement.
As I think most people know, you have significant public and private sector experience in the healthcare financing field. Medicaid costs are rising at insane levels.
13%.
Exactly, as you just said. Can that be curbed, do you think?
I think it needs to be reformed, and I think it can be, and I also think it can be done in a way that respects the fact that it's a very important program to a lot of people here in the Commonwealth. But there are a lot of other programs that are important too, and if Medicaid, which represents $13 billion of a $40 billion budget, is growing at 5 times the rate of the rest of the budget, that's a problem. And so one of the things we're going to do is, it's probably more like 3 times the rate of the rest of the budget. One of the things we're going to do is make sure that Medicaid and Mass Health don't have a profoundly negative impact on everything else we're trying to do here.
Let's talk about the MBTA for a minute. We don't think about it a lot out here, and we probably should, because it affects everything that happens in our Commonwealth's capital city, and that's good or bad for us. When we hear T, we generally think, well, there goes our money for our roads and our bridges. You have stepped in boldly there. You've got a T study commission, if you will. You want to report back in a month. We saw a tough situation at the T with the recent storms. You want to see some changes and some action there.
Yeah, the long story short, the storms were unprecedented. 9 feet of snow in 3 weeks. Yeah. Doesn't happen a lot. But that said, we really felt that this was a signal with respect to the past and the future of the T, and so we got together some experts to talk, basically make us recommendations about governance, finance, and operations. And we got some terrific people. We got the woman who's now over at Harvard, but she used to run the New York Transit Authority, which is the largest public transit authority in the country. We got Jane Garvey, who's a former head of the FAA. We've got several serious academics who've done a ton of work in infrastructure and transportation finance. I feel they're a great group. They're going to get back to us by the end of March, and I'm really looking forward to their recommendations.
I know there's some dispute about it, but does the $5 billion plus in debt for the T, does that sound about right to you as you've seen so far?
I think that's about right. Now remember, a lot of that debt was to finance T expansion. And I think one of the things this group is going to take a look at is the relationship between expansion and sort of maintaining, upgrading, investing in your current system. And I think in some ways that's one of the big questions we're hoping they're going to give us some guidance on. You
have in your first weeks in office created a workforce skills cabinet. You want to work with private sector, career centers, the vocational, technical, high schools, and the community colleges to make sure there are training programs in place to get people ready for the jobs that are out there. I know one estimate is there's 100,000 jobs could be filled in the snap of a finger if we had the right folks locally to do it. You feel that's critical to our economic growth? Yeah, I've heard a lot from people in Western Mass and in other parts of the Commonwealth where you talk to an employer in the morning who says, I got 50 jobs I'm trying to fill, or I got 100 jobs I'm trying to fill. They're not rocket science jobs, but they're skilled positions. And then you talk to people later on in the day who are looking for work who can't fit those bills. And I think one of the things we need to do is get our employer community, our college, our education community, and our workforce development community together and basically execute on a strategy that's designed around making sure that what we're doing with job training, career and technical schools and all the rest, and community colleges, as you point out, fits with what employers are looking for. Because, and by the way, this is not just a problem here. Many of the other governors I talked to last week when I was down in Washington at the National Governors Association meeting all said that this mismatch between what people can do and what the jobs are out there are all about is a huge problem for them too. The opioid addiction crisis, again, you talked about it a lot in the campaign. You've now created a working group. You want a statewide strategy. You want insurers to play a part in this. There's already a program in place to try and stop people from doctor shopping and pharmacy shopping. A good place to start? Yeah, although what I would say is I talked to the governors, the other New England governors about this issue as well. We think we ought to have a New England region approach to prescription monitoring to deal with the doc shopping. But I also think on the front end of this, we need to be a lot more careful about how we prescribe opiate medication generally. The Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration in Washington says that based on their survey data, 80% of those people who are addicted to heroin started on an opioid prescription.
we need to be a lot smarter on the prevention end here to limit the number of people who end up addicted to pain medication, which then obviously for many of them moves into a heroin addiction. And the other thing we need to do is be smarter about treatment.
You come to the office of governor, I think, with more experience on Beacon Hill than any recent chief executive, with the possible exception of your friend, the late Paul Cellucci. And even there, different. I think you've had more high-level experience going into the office. Still, I wonder, is it different when the buck finally makes its last stop at your desk, almost 2 months in? Anything surprising about the job now that you've been in it a couple of months?
Well, your point about the fact that it's the last stop on the train is a good one. I mean, one of the other things that is very important to me that I've discovered is that people are policy. And to really be successful, you got to have people across your administration who are on your team, share your agenda, your vision, your goals, and have the subject matter expertise and the management chops to get stuff done, because you can't control everything. A lot of this is about making sure you got the right people in these jobs and that they come to you when they need to for guidance and advice and judgment. But mostly day in and day out, they're going to be the ones who are driving a lot of the policy initiatives and following through and executing. And the other big difference, frankly, is you know, I served in 2 governors and their cabinets, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Administration and Finance. Just a lot less public engagement in those jobs. Those are management jobs. I love the work I did. I learned a lot about government. I learned a lot about how to get stuff done. But the amount of time you spend with the public, in the public domain, talking to the media, talking to local people, talking to constituents, it's just very different in this job than it was in those.
Well, Governor Charlie Baker, thanks for some of your time with this end of the media today. Appreciate having you. Come back anytime.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.